Okay, our next speaker is Cori Thomas-Stowers. I was told I'm not allowed to tell you that she taught my daughter how to ice skate, just to say, back in the day. I've known Cori a long time. Anyway, she is the Supervising Intelligence Analyst and in the Tactical Analysis Unit of the Orange County Intelligence Assessment Center. She she supports the tactical TAU, primarily focused on the transnational organized crime, crime and violent crime threats. Additionally, Cori, her real name is Cori, not Cori, partners as a task force analyst with the Federal Bureau of Investigations Criminal Squad in Orange County. She has nearly 20 years of experience in law enforcement. I was there, I know, beginning with Westminster Police Department, the Orange County District Attorney's Office, and the Human Exploitation Trafficking Unit. Am I allowed to tell stories about Westminster? Probably not. And it's over. And where am I at here? I lost myself. I got excited. At the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, working child sexual exploitation cases as a tactical cyber analyst. Corinne currently holds a Bachelor's in Arts in Criminal Justice and a Master's in Social Work. She was recognized in 2022 by the National Fusion Center Association as an Intelligence Analyst of the Year, as well as a Medal of Valor recipient from the Orange County Sheriff's Department for her role in Operation Red Zone, the largest Orange County law enforcement proactive human trafficking operation. This is Cori Thomas.
I'm all about a comedic relief because this topic's really heavy. So, true story, I almost threw up in Derek's car once after having food poisoning. But I made it home safely and I didn't throw up in his car. And then another lieutenant decided to put Caesar salad at my desk that I got sick from. So, as we move through this, hi guys, I'm Cori St. Thomas. Thank you, Derek, for introducing me. I'm super excited to be here. I love sharing this information. Oftentimes, I speak with law enforcement, special agents, and so to get to publicly speak to you and share some information. So my position, it's very long-winded. I'm the dork behind the computer, basically, to simplify it. I'm doing that to support efforts with federal agents, whether it be FBI, HSI, DEA, things like that, but also our local law enforcement as well. And I have a team of 10 analysts that are working in Orange County for this. So, oh, I think I have a clicker. Let's see. Here we go. No. Next time. Next slide. Thank you. Perfect. There we go. So the Fusion Center. Raise your hand if you're familiar with the Orange County Intelligence Assessment Center. That's really good. I'm very excited about that. So what are we? We are a fusion center in Orange County. So after 9/11 happened, the government decided that we need to do a better job of information sharing between local, state, and federal entities. And so they developed these fusion centers. And oftentimes there's one in a singular state. There's one in Nebraska, there's one in Rhode Island, there's 80 of them across the nation. In California, we have 6 of them. Yes. And specifically in Orange County, we have 1. And why is that unique? We're the only county in the entire United States that has their own fusion center. So we're a conglomerate of a bunch of entities under one roof sharing information. With that, we're looking at all threats, all hazards. So even though it was for post 9/11 efforts for counterterrorism, we now focus on transnational organized crime, maritime, child exploitation, violent crime, cyber, and then obviously still counterterrorism. Next slide. So what are we doing over there at the Fusion Center? People like to joke that we're the Orange County CIA. That is not what we are. It's not that crazy. What we do is we ingest information, we analyze that information, and we get it in the hands that it needs to go to. And we make kind of, information sharing value of whether to escalate that or not. So if something comes across my desk at the Okayak, actually, in fact, on the way here, I received a threat to life. And so I review that information. I figure out, okay, is something really bad gonna happen? With reasonable information. And then I get it to the law enforcement entity that it needs to get to, whether it's FBI, whether it's the Orange County Sheriff's Department, whether it's Costa Mesa Police Department right here. And we call them up and we say, this is what we have. But we're also looking at bigger threat pictures. So if somebody were to ask me like, Cori, what does human trafficking look like for Orange County? I feel like I have a comfortable answer for that. I have, based off my professional experience. Cori, what does human smuggling look like in relation to drug trafficking in Orange County? I feel like I have a response for that. So it's understanding that bigger threat picture as well. Next slide. So when we're talking today about sexual abuse material, and I think some of my colleagues and panel mates have talked about it a little bit, the sheer volume alone is insane how much it's gone up. It's astronomical, the amount. And so some of these numbers that you see behind me or in front of me, yep, behind me, this is based off of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children to give you an idea of the cyber tip reports and the escalation of the volume of that information. So when I was working at NECMEC, that's what we say for short, when I was working at NECMEC, I'd review as an analyst, one analyst, we had 27 of them at the time, I don't know how many they have now. I would probably close out about 100 to 125 reports of child pornography or child sexual abuse material a day. And out of those, I was dealing with cases that involved immediate threat to a child's life or something that was currently going on or live streamed, probably about 10 of those a day. And that was before the pandemic, before the volume, the massive increase in the reporting. So it's just gone up astronomically. Next slide. So crimes associated with the internet that we touch on at the OCIAC, that when I'm working in my capacity as a task force analyst with the FBI that we're reviewing, is obviously the CSAM material, but just basic online enticement. We've talked a little bit today, we touched on the sextortion element. The amount of sextortion cases that local police departments are now getting from the community. I've had even a district attorney come up to me and say, as we previously mentioned, how close it hits to home. Hey, this is what my son's going through right now. How do I deal with that? It's just out there. It's a very, very busy violation. And then of course the child sex trafficking. The amount of recruitment that happens based off of applications, it's gone up astronomically. Even with 5 or so years ago, when we were hyper-focused on Facebook and Instagram, now it's just a wildfire of recruitment. In fact, when I was working at the Orange County District Attorney's Office, they just like to send messages to the alias accounts at the District Attorney's Office trying to recruit our undercover accounts, which wasn't too smart for them. So it's just the volume. They're taking one message and sending those mass messages, hoping they get a kid to pick up on that. Next slide. So that online enticement, I think this is important to understand and kind of breaking it down to simplify it. It involves an individual communicating with someone believed to be a child. So it could be a cop, basically. It can be a cop. It does not have to be a real juvenile in that capacity. Via the internet with the intent to commit a sexual offense or an abduction. The intent to commit a sexual offense or abduction. And this sounds egregious, it sounds horrific, but honestly, if you were to sit here and talk to kids, preteens, teenagers, young adults, adolescents, they're gonna say like, of course we get weird messages. Like, that's just a part of the internet. It's not too wild. Next slide. So this is my small short takeaway, and I explain this a lot when I go in more detail about some of the specifics, is that kids and teens will always know more than you, every single time. So even in my capacity, back when I was working at Westminster Police Department as an intern, I was sitting in the Detective Bureau, and I remember I sat with the gang unit, and I said to them one day, I go, all your gangsters are on MySpace. They're all on MySpace. They're all posting everything on MySpace. And they looked at me like I was speaking a completely foreign language. Like, why on earth would these gang members post their crimes online? And I'm like, I don't know, but it's right here. Here's the shooting from last night. And so from there, it just really amplified. And that was 2000, I'm gonna date myself, don't judge, 2004, 2005. And I honestly, truly have had a touch point with social media in my career the entire time. And it's 20 years later, and I'm still involved in that capacity. And then emojis always have meaning, excuse me. So what do I mean by that? If we ever talk to kids and teens and we're looking at it and they're like, oh no, I just put that emoji, it doesn't mean anything. I would argue they're lying every single time. Now, for me as an adult, like there's times where I send a little heart and I'm just trying to convey emotion behind that, to be like, I'm not mad, heart, look. In actuality, when we're looking at these, whether it's sex trafficking, whether it's narcotics trafficking, whether it's sextortion, whatever the violation is, there's an emoji with it. Yeah. And then mental health can be impacted by social media. We've touched on that. We'll probably touch on it more with other speakers. But I see it from the threat to life side of the house. So when I'm looking at this information that comes into the National Threat Operations Center with FBI, that gets trickled down to us, which gets trickled down to Associated Police Agency, what I'm noticing, it is a hard time to be a teen. So one of the things that I kind of think about, or I share often, is that it's very easy for us as adults to say to a kid, I get it, I was a kid, I was a teenager, I know what it's like. I know I've been told that when I was growing up, right? But I would argue we don't. We have no concept. This is a generation, very different than any other time in history, that they don't know a life without social media. They literally don't. They were born and raised into the era of social media. So the pressures that they're facing are unlike anything we've ever seen. And this is a little side story, but I think it'll make sense, so stay with me. I'm at the grocery store. I'm 13 years old, I just got off of figure skating practice, and I'm with my mom, and I've got my skates on in the grocery store. Yes, I put guards on, I walked through there. And we're checking out, and I remember seeing the magazine sitting there and thinking, like, I don't look anything like these women. Like, I'm muscular, I'm short, I have acne at the time, I'm, all hormones raging, I have no idea who I am, and I'm feeling all kinds of insecure. But I see the magazine, I feel like garbage. And my mom goes, we're not buying that garbage, let's move on. We go home, I sit down at the dinner table, have dinner with mom and dad, and I go to bed, I do my homework, and I start skating the next day. Okay, so I got to check out, I got to physically separate from that messaging of what I should be, or what I could be, or what I'm not. And our kids now never get that separation. So they don't get to leave the magazine at the grocery store. They go back to their bedrooms and they can scroll through social media and they see all these influencers and celebrities and all these people, and they're like, oh, I really don't look like that. Or I don't have that. Or my family doesn't celebrate that way. Or, I even argue as a mom myself, I have a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, I would even say, like, I feel like garbage as a mom sometimes because I'm not baking the sourdough bread. Like, I don't know how to do that. I'm trying to do the decor and keep up, but it's a struggle. So if I have the brain development to understand that and to check out and go exercise and have my support systems and have those self-care measures in place, but I'm an adult. Give that to a teen, that's the frontal lobe, and all the conversations we'll continue to have about that, the physical development, the emotional development, they're not equipped to handle it. And then let's throw in those other factors, like maybe pre-existing mental health conditions, maybe some underlying abuse going on at the home. And I would argue it's keeping up with the Joneses on acid. And we touched on the threats on gaming, and I probably will belabor that point even more, but the online gaming, I always say if it connects to the internet, it's horrific. That's my official posture. And then children's physical development, their frontal lobe literally isn't developed enough to understand those immediate decision-making capabilities. So we need to be cognizant of that and sometimes give grace and understand that, especially with elements like sextortion. Next slide. And how to report. The public can report any kind of a possible crime to the Yo Kayak. And I'm not joking, this literally goes to my email box. So if we come across something suspicious activity. Yes, it's for counterterrorism. Yes, it's for drug trafficking. Yes, it's for all these other things. But let's say you do come across, or you have an association to a crime that's related to the internet, that's cyber related. If you report it to us, I'm gonna look at it, I'm gonna review it, I'm gonna take all the usernames you give me, and I'm gonna go on the internet and try to get it to the law enforcement that's gonna get out and possibly handle that. And I will advocate hard for it too. So if I see something on there that I'm like, this is a problem, my husband's a cop, I'll have uncomfortable conversations where I think it's important. So we don't know unless the public shares with us.